right, guys. So, welcome to the Saturday morning Thai time. It's Friday evening in the States, and today we shall be talking about doubt. Now, uh, doubt is within the teachings of the Buddha, fits into two different systems of thought or two different categories. One is that doubt is a fetter if you phrase it correctly, and always doubt is in the form of a hindrance. So, the first thing that we need to do is to talk about the distinctions between what is a fetter and what is a hindrance. Now, interestingly enough, the fetters are grouped as into higher and lower, but really that's a bad translation. They're really grouped into what is called rupa and arupa fetters. And that rupa fetters means basically that when they show up in a friend or someone, you can see it. You can see their fetter. It shows up. And that the arupa fetters don't show up, except that, yes, they do. An example of a rupa fetter is considered, the Pali word is mana, and what it means is conceit and competition, which is certainly easy enough to see. And so the interesting thing about the higher fetters or the arupa fetters is that they are no place in the suttas. They don't show anywhere. Um, but they are listed in one sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya, but we already, I think everybody knows that the Samyutta Nikaya was a later work. That it looks like it is not just a collection, but it's classified into 57 different groups of things. And it's very much like the Dhammapada, except that it's the Dhammapada is verses to where the Samyutta Nikaya or kindred sayings are listed together. So there is one sutta. Now, the interesting thing is that the five arupa fetters are also listed in the Abhidhamma, and that it's not the same list. Some of the list is the same, and others of it is not. Now, also interesting is that some of the fetters are also listed as hindrances, and some of them are not. Two specifically hindrances are restlessness and worry that comes up in the moment. And then there is a deeper restlessness, wanting something, wanting to go someplace, not satisfied with the present moment, that seems to linger over a long period of time. So, restlessness and doubt are actually interrelated. Uh, for instance, in restlessness, it has to do with wanting something, but we're not sure what. So that's like a doubt. Or another way of saying it is that um, the restlessness is because there is something missing, but we don't know what it is. And so we start asking questions, and that's where the worry comes in. So these fetters and the hindrances are interrelated, but we can use the word hindrance in the sense of that which is hindering me or you right now into being in the state that you would want to be in. Mostly what we're looking for is to be in a really happy state that the Buddha refers to as first jhana. Now, the freedom from those hindrances, one can be, in fact, free from the hindrances in the moment and still have the hindrance of uh, the fetter of doubt. So the hindrance of doubt can be eliminated in the moment, but it's still an underlying tendency. That in fact, that's the way of looking at it, is underlying tendencies. So the way that you could look at the difference is that the fetters are in seed form, and that the seeds, when they germinate, are in plant form. And so the plant then is right here, right now. That's the hindrance, and the seed is the fetter. So let's look at the lower fetters, or the rupa fetters, because they come as a group, and they are in fact discussed, let's say, fairly often within the context of the the suttas that existed either before or immediately after the time of the Buddha. Most specifically, the Sabha Asava Sutta talks about the first three lower fetters, and that many people, because of the way that it's stated, is that if he attends wisely, while he's attending wisely to the Four Noble Truths, in the sense of this is dukkha, this is the cause of dukkha, this is what it's like to be free from dukkha, and this is the path that leads to the end of dukkha. So while we're working with that, three fetters are, well, let us say, eventually dispensed with. Now, the first fetter is the fetter of personality view. And personality view means everybody has been taught in English that I know of that you have a personality. I don't know what the Pali was originally for the word personality view, but basically, what the personality view is that you have a view about who you are, and that this changes, but we're generally ignorant of the change. And that one of the ways of understanding it is that as we grow up and as we grow old, our view of ourself changes, except that we still say me. As a child, certain events happened in your life, and now as an adult, you remember those things and say that happened to me, or I did this, or I did that, not recognizing that in fact you've made so many changes that you're nothing like that child. The only thing that's left, in fact, is vague memory. That in fact I have heard that many people can hardly remember anything that happened when they were a child. Going back to, let us say, about age 7, and many people don't remember anything that happened before they were age 7. Other people remember things that happened before age 5. Some will remember some things that happened when they were 4. And some people remember things when they were 3, even. I have actually heard that if a big event, something like, let us say in 1910, a steamroller came down the dirt road, and the 2-year-old saw that steamroller and remembers it. So we can actually remember things back to about the age of 2 if it's a big event. But most people don't remember a lot of stuff that happened. So reflect upon it yourself. Does anybody actually remember things that happened when they were 2 years old? Were you okay? How about you, Santiago? You remember anything that happened when you were 2? Oh, Mikey says that he can remember. What happened to you when you were 2 years old, Mikey?
I remember my grandma changing my diaper and she had sharp nails and it scratched my butt.
Sharp nails, that'll give you a memory. How about 3 years old? I remember a
I
lot of
actually
stuff.
remember. I remember being conscious for the first time. That was pretty crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of people can remember things that happened when they were 3. But a lot of people don't remember anything when they were 3, 4, or 5. In fact, generally, people begin to wake up when they start going to school. Because why? Because first grade is traumatic. You could say, in fact, that that's what wakes us up. Is there an alarm clock of some event that wakes us up? And after that, we begin to record memories. So, personality view is the belief, like Mikey said, that Granny changing his diaper, and she had sharp fingernails, which meant that she stuck him with the fingernails, and so we self-identify. That's actually the place where the delusion of I, me, and my starts off. That's it. The personality view then carries on for the rest of our life until we start practicing the Dhamma, and that's when we begin to wake up to what is personality view, and just remembering then that memory is just a collection of sights, sounds, etc., but that they're not me. Now, we can actually understand this by the practice of the Four Noble Truths. That's what it says specifically, in fact, that when we practice the Four Noble Truths, which is the primary teaching of the Buddha, when we practice the Four Noble Truths, we begin to wake up to the fact that the body is not me, my consciousness is not me, feelings also not me, our perception is not me, and our memory systems are not me. This is then part and parcel of the teaching of anatta. So when we practice the Four Noble Truths, we wake up to the reality that all of these memories that we've had for our whole lives were just stored memories, that in fact, many of them are mistaken. It might be possible, Mikey, for you to go back and check with your grandmother, and she doesn't remember having any sharp nails. That's only your memory. It's a private memory, and there's no way of vouching for it or guaranteeing it. Something happened when I was a teenager that began to put this to me. And that is that I remember specifically in my memory, I remember my grandfather planting a particular tree, a pecan tree, in a particular location out in the yard. And I got into a conversation with my mother about it, and she says, no, her dad, my grandpa, planted that tree when she was a teenager before I was born, and she was adamant about that in the sense that my memory was wrong. I remember him planting that tree, but it never really happened because I wasn't even born yet when that tree was planted. That will happen from time to time when our moms, let us say when we're in our teenage years, but after we become adults, those memories get fixed as if it were my memory rather than my delusion. And when we actually recognize this, we begin to see that most of the stuff that we remember, we made up. An example of that is we have a dream. And then for the first day or two, we remember that as a dream. And then later we remember it as real. We can also be in a conversation with somebody and they pin us down and we tell them a lie. And after that, that lie becomes real to us. Now, one of the things that I learned in doing the meditation classes, I actually didn't come across this until Ajahn Po pointed it out to me, and that is the reason why they do not want meditation retreaters to talk to each other about experience that they've had is because when they tell the experience, they remake it up. And then then on, they do not remember the actual experience in meditation. They remember the story that they told somebody about that experience. And so our memory systems, not so great. So if we begin to practice the Four Noble Truths, we will see, in fact, that first fetter is we made that shit up. And that's who we are. We define I am this. This is my personality, and most of it is made up. So the second fetter is the fetter of what is called Silavata Paramasa. That Pali word actually means that we have rules, rituals, ideas about how things are supposed to be, and is normally translated as attachment to rites, rules, rituals, and how things are supposed to be. Now, that means that we are critical of the world and we're critical of ourselves. And so you could say then that the fetter of attachments to the way things should be interferes with, modifies, and helps define who we think we are. Much of who we think we are is based upon what we think things ought to be. Idealism, etc., like that. An example of that would be people attached to the rules, rituals, and stuff of Christianity, and they will go around saying, I am a Christian. And then later, they don't believe in that stuff. And so they say, I'm not a Christian. I'm an ex-Christian or something like that. But the reality is that our rule systems are changeable. That in fact, how things ought to be when we're a teenager change to how things ought to be when we're getting into middle age, and they change further when we get into old age. In other words, when you're young, you look at old people in a certain way, but when you get old, you don't look at old people the way that you did when you were a teenager. You look at old people the way that you are when you were old. And so our rule systems and who we are is changing. Now, the real question that was asked is about doubt, which is the third fetter. And in Sutra number 24, it's got a really clear definition of doubt about what the path and what is not the path to freedom. Now, we're talking about, in fact, the whole of the Eightfold Noble Path and the Four Noble Truths, but we can just use it in the sense of the Eightfold Noble Path. When you understand completely that what you thought was the way to live your life is wrong, and that now you have a new perspective about how to live your life based upon the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path, then that means that you have finally eradicated the doubt about how to live. This is the fetter of doubt as a seed. In other words, you begin to cook those seeds so that they don't plant anymore or don't germinate, and that you don't replace them with anything other than the actual Dhamma. That who you are now is defined by Dhamma, and you take on a completely different set of ethics, a completely new set of rules and way things are supposed to be. So this is the fetter of doubt about what is the path and what is not the path. Now, that actually is kind of different from the hindrance of doubt, because a hindrance of doubt, as a hindrance, can be anything that comes to mind that you're unsure of. Now, the place that I've seen that most is when people get the instructions for the Eightfold Noble Path and how to practice. What they do is they want to get it right. They want to make sure. And so they wind up having a lot of doubt. They have a lot of questions. They keep wanting to know this and that and the other thing, that a lot of their questions have already been answered. But they keep thinking and worrying and questioning rather than actually practicing. It's almost, in fact, very much like a bicycle. How many books do you have to read on riding a bicycle before you actually get on the bicycle and ride? And that's the way that we do the Dhamma. Is, in fact, they read books and more books and more books after that, and they don't practice. They don't get on the Dhamma bike and ride it. They still want to know to make sure. I guess they're afraid that they'll fall off or something. And bicycles are like that. You fall off. That's how you learn to ride them. It corrects. And so that's also the same thing with the Dhamma. The only way to learn the Dhamma is by doing it, falling off, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get on it, ride it again, fall off again, etc., through that cycle. Except that the more often you fall off, the more you learn how to ride. And just like in a bicycle, you can actually be so good at riding bicycles that you join a tournament. You can still fall off the bike. You can get so good at riding bicycles that you become a world champion. Guess what? You can still fall off. This is why it's so good idea to keep practicing, to see that, yeah, you fall off. Get back up on and ride it again. Don't lay there in the gutter. Poor me, what did I do wrong? And go back into that hindrance of doubt. But rather, doubt is only reckoned with by getting back on and practicing over and over and over again. So those are the first three fetters. Personality view actually begins to change as we come out of our doubt about what is the path and what is not the path. So that when we fully understand what is the path, we begin to see personality view as it doesn't exist, or more clearly, it exists, but it only exists when we fall off the bike. When we fall off the Dhamma bike, that's when personality, I fell off the bike. here I am in the gutter. But when you're riding the Dhamma bike, there's no one riding the Dhamma bike. It's just the Dhamma. So one of the ways of looking at it is that doubt comes in three forms. The first form that we all have when we are children, and most people bring these all the way into adulthood. And the first doubt, which is the most primitive, is I can't do it on my own. I cannot ride that bicycle on my own. I need someone to guide me. I need training wheels. I need a doctor. I need a guru, etc., like that, because I can't do it on my own. And so the doubt would be then, who can I get to do my job for me? Who can I get to help me? Who will do it for me? Because we do that in our whole lives. For instance, moms will hire tutors or help you do your homework because you have the attitude, I can't do it by myself. But if you have the attitude, I can do the homework by myself, we don't need a tutor. We don't need mommy standing there and pointing, do this problem and do this next problem and do that third problem, etc., like that. We could do it on our own, but the doubt is, I can't do it on my own. This is actually that doubt that comes in when people do not get on that Dhamma bicycle and ride. That's the first doubt. And in fact, that doubt is what prevents most people from being able to practice at all, is because they want to get it right. They want to understand it completely. And so that doubt then is a huge hindrance, because that doubt hinders them from being able to get started in practice. The second level of doubt, once we get through that, and that basically that point is the second noble truth, that greed, ill will, and ignorance or delusion is the cause of our dissatisfactions in this moment and in life in general. And we don't like that dissatisfaction, so we're trying to get someone else to take it away. But once we figure out that there's no one going to help us out of our own greed, no one's going to help us out of our own ill will, and no one's going to help us out of our ignorance, that we have to do that ourselves. Wow, that's a major change in life when somebody comes out of I need help into I'm stuck at having to do it myself because nobody can help me. So that leaves in the second layer of doubt. And that second layer of doubt is, am I up to the task? Because we still haven't gotten over, I can't do it, I need help. You can't get any help. So now you've got to get over that second layer of doubt is, can you do it? Well, guess what? No one can ride a bicycle until they get on it and ride. Doesn't that make sense? Santiago, does that make sense to you? You can't ride a bicycle until you get on it and ride.
Yeah, you gotta get on it. And then all the doubts disappear because with this, there's that.
Can do it. Okay, so that's the second level of doubt. I can do it. Now, that I can do it could be then what the Buddha calls the first knowledge. And it's stated as, no matter how obstructed, how hindered the mind can be, I can come out of those hindrances. I'm not stuck. In other words, I can do this. I can ride that bicycle. That's the first knowledge. I can do this. Now, the Buddha also talks about that first knowledge. And by the way, this is in Sutta number 48, the Kasambian Sutta. He says that this I can do it is noble. It's the first step of nobility. It also is part of the path. This attitude that I can do it, and most importantly, this attitude I can do it is not held by ordinary people. Look how many ordinary people are stuck in, oh, I need help to do this, and oh, I can't do it without help. That's the whole population. Very, very rarely does someone come to the point of, I can do this, and change that attitude. And once we do that, then we are now experimenting with the path, looking at the Eightfold Noble Path, and then eventually coming to the conclusion that, wow, not only can I do it, but I've got the method to do it. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt what is and what is not the path. And so that's the third level of doubt. And when we pass over that level of doubt, that's when we have finished with that first fetter. Now, these three lower fetters of personality view, who's riding the bicycle, the rules where and how to ride the bicycle, and then the doubt about, can I ride that bicycle? These are called the first lower fetters. And if someone can eliminate these three fetters, that is in fact part of the knowledge that is required for the full state of the, let us call it the fruit of the sotapan. And yet a lot of Westerners think that it's only those three fetters, and there's a whole lot more to it than that. That in fact you could go so far as to say the real knowledge that one needs in order to become a sotapan is dedication, eagerness, enthusiasm for the Dhamma all the time. So they're always looking for the Dhamma. I congratulate those people here, like Ivan and Santiago and Ben and Dhammadas, because they're always coming back. They always want to hear the Dhamma. That's the enthusiasm that we're looking for. That's one of the defining things for being in the stream of the Dhamma. That's what the word stream enterer means, is we're now in the stream of Dhamma, because that's really all we care about is the Dhamma. We can go and do all kinds of things. You can play with your computer, but if the computer breaks, you come back to the Dhamma. Oh, well, the computer's broken, not me. So we come back to the Dhamma over and over again. When we fall off the bike, we get off, get up, dust ourselves off, and boogie on down the road again. Over and over and over again, we're going to fail because we call it failure. Better way of looking at it is that we're going to constantly learn. We call our learning experiences failures because that's a personality view. I failed, rather than seeing it as merely a learning experience. So this is where we have these three fetters of personality view, sila bhatta paramasa, or attachments to the way things are supposed to be, followed then by removal of the fetter of what is and what is not the path. That sets us then on the path of the Dhamma. One can then be called a real Dhamma dude. One can be called noble, because that's the only thing that we care about. And each one of you can reflect upon that if you really care about the Dhamma and don't care about much of anything else other than the Dhamma, that defines you then as that first step of nobility. Now, once one has become a sotapan, that doesn't mean that doubt is going to be completely eradicated. Sometimes we just don't know. The question then, can we turn the I don't knows into simply I don't knows rather than, oh, I should know and I don't, because that's the doubt. So Ajahn Po actually spent quite a lot of time with the phrase with me, and I've heard also that Ajahn Chah used exactly the same phrase of not sure. Not sure. Now remember that the second noble truth is ignorance. Guess what? You will remain somewhat ignorant for the rest of your life because you just can't know everything. Even though you want to know everything, you can't know everything. The certain, let us say, the amount of human knowledge is vast, much more vast than any one particular person has ever come to. And so you can't know everything. And not only that, but the stuff that humanity hasn't even figured out yet, how can you possibly know that? It's unknowable so far and may remain unknowable right along forever. An example of that is the physicists. Look at the telescopes that they've done. Galileo had a scope, and he figured out that the Earth went around the sun rather than the old Catholic way of that the Earth is the center of the solar system, center of the world, and that everything revolves around the Earth. And since then, the physicists have gotten bigger and bigger telescopes. They got a Schmidt. They got the reflective telescopes. Then they got the Hubble telescope. And every time that they got a new telescope, they learned more things, which means then they had to put away the ignorance. And now they've got the James Webb telescope, and it's completely changing things. That in fact, right now, uh, uh, physics is in turmoil because everything that they thought they knew about the universe is being questioned because of new data. The standard model of particle physics is also under question. We don't know. Now, the Dhamma dudes, we can say, oh, we don't know, and that's okay. I can be happy and don't know. But the physicists, they're worried. They want to know. They're going to get some more math and get Einstein, pull him out of his grave and say, hey, man, you got it wrong. We want you to figure it out right again, because they want to know. And we'll never know. So there comes a point when we know enough, and all we really need to know is the practice of the Dhamma. Once we know how to practice the Dhamma correctly, that's all we need to know. We don't need to know more than that. And so that fetter, in fact, you could say that the last fetter, the highest of fetters, is the fetter of ignorance. Can you, in fact, be happy that you don't know something? Can you be happy that you don't know? And maybe nobody does. And yet, look at school. School is all about trying to stuff as much knowledge into your mind as you possibly can over a course of 12 years or more. Maybe 14, 16, 18, 20 years of school, and there's still no end to it. No end to the amount of stuff that you could know. But what we need instead is to come to the state that I know enough. I know enough to be happy. I know enough to not be afraid anymore. I know enough to be comfortable. I know enough to be satisfied. I know enough to be successful in my Dhamma practice, wealthy, in fact. This is all we need to know. And yet, all of those people out there are still full of doubt. And they want to know more and more and more, as if the amount of data that they gather is going to help them feel better. But in fact, the more data that we know, puts us in a position of being in competition with others. Oh, I know more than you do. It's better just to say, we've got enough. This is all we need. There is nothing more to it. And so this is actually the final eradication of doubt, even as a fetter, is that we cook those seeds, and the fire that we cook them under, or the fire under them, is that little phrase that Achan Po and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Chah used, and that is, not sure, don't know, don't care. Everything is already okay the way that it is. And finally, we can eradicate that fetter of doubt, that fetter of ignorance. So let's start asking some questions about this. Santiago, what do you have to say about this?
It's great talk. No questions.
Anna, what do you think?
Same here. Great talk, no questions.
Not a doubt about it, huh? Ivan, let me hear it.
Uh, well, it's just interesting something you said earlier on about like when the PC broke and like not being affected by it and just coming back to the Dharma. Interestingly, that happened to me a few days ago. I was just usually I would freak out and I was like, yeah, stuff breaks, so be it.
Yes, many times we get the delusion that I am my laptop. The kid gets a new cell phone. I am my cell phone. Look how bad people feel when they break their cell phone, as if they had broken their own noggin. They break the cell phone, they break their laptop. My car has a problem. It's got to go into service, which means while it's in service, I need to be in service too, because I am my car.
Yeah.
This is that personality view. Who am I? I am my car. I am my computer. I am my laptop. But when we recognize that, no, the laptop, they're temporary. Not only that, but in the old days, laptops and desk computers and cell phones were outrageously expensive. Now they're cheap, and yet people still attach to them the same way. But in fact, the computer that Mikey is using right now is a Lenovo 570. It only cost $100. It's used, but it's good enough. As opposed to the computer that I used here was more than $300. Well, $300 for a brand new computer with Windows 11, etc., like that. I remember that a laptop like this would have been $3,000. I know because I spent $3,000 on a laptop before. I don't even know where it is. It's probably in the junk pile now. How many laptops do you have to go through before you can come to the conclusion, I'm not that laptop? How many cell phones do you have to go through before you come to the conclusion, I'm not my cell phone? Then, in fact, I've got to congratulate Cathal. Once again, he mindlessly broke his cell phone, and now he doesn't even want a new one. He's better off without it. Because we tried to replace it for him, and he don't want one. So that's a clear indication he is not his cell phone. Ivan, are you your laptop?
No. Big no.
A big no. So look at how people attach to things. How about you, Kirshni? Do you have anything to say?
Nothing really. But I've been thinking about how to get rid of doubt.
How do
I
you
agree, it's
get rid
important.
of doubt? That's an interesting question. The first
Huh.
thing that we need to do is to see it as a hindrance, to see that your doubt about what I should do and everything like that is actually hindering me in this moment from being happy. And when you also recognize you'll not ever figure everything out, you don't need to know this. So that, oh, poor me, I've lost my laptop, we can in fact see that I am not the laptop. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm not the car, I'm not the laptop, I'm not that hard drive, I'm not this house. And when we keep looking at I am not this, I am not that, then slowly that doubt becomes eradicated. It's especially true when you eradicate the path, the knowledge and vision of what is and what is not the path. That's the big eradicator. Once we come to the point of, oh, I've got the Eightfold Noble Path, I've got the Four Noble Truths, who could ask for anything more? So that's the main way of getting rid of doubt, is by recognizing that we've got the path. The path is available to us. And we need to remember that with sati, see that our attachment to the laptop or attachment to that or the doubt is actually an unwholesome thought. It's a hindrance. And when we see that our doubt hinders us from feeling the way that we want to, right then and there we can change it. But you have to see it clearly as unwholesome. You have to see it clearly as a cause of dissatisfaction. And then we can say, oh, well, I'll do without the laptop. I'll get another one. Everything is all right. I didn't die when the laptop died. So this is how you deal with the hindrance, is by seeing that hindrance of doubt right then and there. If you can see that, see it's a hindrance, see it's that it's unwholesome, unuseful, that it's a problem, it's in fact dukkha. Then we can change it from being dukkha to being non-dukkha. Does that answer your question? Krishna, does that answer your question?
He said yes.
All right. So, okie dokie, do you have anything to say?
I like the not sure answer. I'm gonna start saying it when I don't know.
That, in fact, that's the best answer that we have to any of those philosophical questions. I don't know. Not sure. Don't care.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Dhammarato.
So, Paul, do you have something to say?
Thank you. That was a good talk.
Zero Sum One, do you have something to say?
Yeah, great talk. One thing when I think of doubt is this year, I like to, or I didn't even realize I was doing it, is you sort of come up with a conception of how things are going and the way things are going to go. And then suddenly life happens and things change and you find you're attached to those outcomes that you created based on really nothing. And that's something where I've had trouble with doubt.
Yeah. I would say, it just reminded me of, have you ever heard the question, why me?
Yes, yes.
That's like the deepest doubt there is. Why me? Because who are you asking that to? Some big authority. Why did you do that to me? Rather than recognizing we did it to ourselves. Why
Right.
did you break my bicycle? Well, you're the one who broke your bicycle. You were the one who was riding it. And so why me questions go away. We don't have that kind of question anymore. Because you recognize that you're the one who is asking that question because you don't like, you have dissatisfaction for whatever happened.
Interestingly, people don't say why me when good thing happen. They say when bad stuff happen.
Let's see who else. Brain in a jar. Welcome. Glad to see you. Do you have something to say? I guess her brain's in a jar. Merc,
Can you guys hear me?
what do you have to say?
So my friend is suffering from basically like thoughts of like, what they've done in the past. And I've tried to tell him like, like you aren't what happened in the past. You aren't like who you were and you can like change now. But they seem to still have this like either attachment or like value system based on themselves, based off of what they've done. And I don't really know how to like remedy that.
Well, one of the things that we can say is that first off, they do not have a Dhamma perspective, and so when you answer that question, they try to put that noble piece of information into their old wineskin.
Mhm.
New wine doesn't fit into old wineskin, so they're going to
And
have to make a change.
well, the thing is, they're willing for like Dhamma, like they practice it a little bit, but how do they shift from the old one to the new one?
Well, basically, by seeing that the old way of doing it is painful.
Mm,
That's the
mm,
entire point of the practice, is to see that what we're doing right now is painful. It's dukkha, it's dissatisfying.
right.
And when we see that the way that we're looking at it is painful, like Ivan was talking about, when the computer died, when the laptop died, he died too. That's painful. And then he can recognize immediately, I am not that laptop. We can make a
Mm,
few statements like, oh, I need that laptop. And the answer to that is, no, you don't. You don't need it. You want it. You like
mm,
it, but you don't need it. It's not an essential. So your friend clinging to the past and feeling guilty about it, you're bringing up actually a completely different topic. I'll touch on it just a point,
mm,
and that's the difference between forgiveness and forgetful. That the Buddha does not teach forgiveness, he teaches to forget it. And so
mm,
your friend is clinging to something that happened in the past, and he's not forgiving himself for it, and he won't forget it. And so he's continuously stabbing himself with an old knife.
Right.
And so the best thing to do is to forget that knife.
Mm.
But the Christians got an alternate to forgive. But the best thing to do is to forget about the past. Reminisce at your peril.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, go right ahead.
So what if you logically understand that, but you still do it?
It's
Like
not a matter of
is it a matter of repetitive repeating it, or
yes. Okay, here's an example of that. That the budding math student
Mhm.
comes out of the math exam, and then the answer dawns on him. Well, it's too late. He needed to have the answer to that dawn on him when he was taking the test. However, if he had been thinking logically and straight, he would have remembered the answer to that question, but he didn't. He was already tied up with it. He was feeling bad. Oh, I don't know the answer to that. And so after they leave the test, then the answer comes because they've dropped the shroud. So when you say that he understands it intellectually, what we really need to do, instead of understanding it intellectually, is to be able to see it right when it's happening. You have to see that question right there when you're in the test, not later. Okay, so this is how, and so when he's discussing this with you, you can ask him, well, what about right now? Can you, in fact, come out of your guilt for the past right now? Can you forget about it?
what if he says no?
Then hand him a hot rock or a hot potato. Piss on his leg. Whack him up the side of the head. Give him some new event to think about, and now he's forgotten about it.
That's true.
I like pissing on his leg. Boy, he'll forget about whatever he had on his mind. In other words,
Yeah, that's
divert them. This is, in fact, the diversion is what we primarily practice. When the mind is unwholesome, we divert it to the wholesome. So diversion, that's the number one way of the practicing the Dhamma, is to
yeah.
get over it. Change your attitude. Don't lay there in the pavement after you've fallen off the bike. Get back up, get back on that bike, and tool on down the road.
That's right. So would meditate with that, like trying to divert your attention towards that past, basically?
Right. Don't turn your
Yeah.
mind to the past, because you can always find something in the past to feel guilty about.
Mm. Okay.
And guilt is just a bad habit. That, in fact, if we felt guilty about what we were doing right here in this moment, we stop doing it. So that makes it easy.
Mm.
Just, change the subject.
Right. Right.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to question? Any points to make? Mikey, your camera is off. Are you okay? Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you take this thing home then?
All right. If you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, be sure to give us a follow, subscribe, like, leave a comment. And yeah, maybe share this video with and anyone else who is watching. Feel free to pass these videos around and spread the Dhamma. Also, find someone to have a one-on-one chat with this week. We have a one-on-one channel. People have been posting times there. I talked with like 4 or 5 different people this week, and that's been really great. So yeah, let's keep making friends and talking Dhamma with one another, sharing our practice, and just enjoy taking it easy. Glad to see everyone today. Take care.
All right, let me add a couple of things to that. Number one is that since the last Guru Viking video was announced, we've had 8 or 10 people join the group, but they haven't become active. So what I would invite you to do, Ben and Santiago, Dhammadas, Ivan, Mikey, etc., to go in and look at the people who have not, they have joined, but they haven't become active on the Discord group, and do a DM for them to see if they're still got Discord up, and invite them to become active. That would be a good outreach. It's not a cold call because they've already joined the group. Also, I would recommend to spend a bit of time, if you want to do some research. We got really, really good research tools on the OSF website. Huge amount of stuff. We've got a lot of interesting videos. And by the way, if you post a video on the Discord, it would be good if you also posted that video on OSF website. Right there on the menus is the word video. And at the bottom of that page, you can add a new video. All right. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dhammarato.
Dhammarato.
Dhammarato.